Hey, welcome to How to Launch Your Podcast in 30 Days to Grow Your Business and Increase Your Authority and Your Impact. My name's Eric K. Johnson, podcast talent coach. I help people take their information and transform it into engaging entertainment so you can turn your podcast into powerful, profitable relationships. In this workshop, we want to roll up our sleeves. I'm going to show you how to launch your podcast in 30 days. I'm going to give you a step by step process so you can do it. Make sure you have something to write with because as we go through this workshop today, I'm going to give you the exact steps to make this happen. My name is Eric K. Johnson. In this workshop, you're going to discover the step by step process to launch your podcast in 30 days or less. All you have to do is follow these steps. I'm also going to share with you a few secrets that most of the podcasting gurus don't teach you. I'm going to show you some things that will make your podcast successful and make sure that you stick around and you don't pod fade. We'll get into that here in a little bit. When you stay until the end, I have a free resource for you. It's called 75 Ways to Drive Engagement with Your Podcast. And here's a little tip for you. This gift right here not only drives engagement with your podcast, but any platform that you're on, whether that's YouTube videos or social media or TikTok, wherever you're posting content, this will help you drive engagement with that. So stay till the end. And I'm also going to give you an offer to join me in the podcast launch accelerator where you can get my help, personal help, live in the program to help you launch your podcast in 30 days. I'll show you how to do it here. But as you know, and I know, information alone doesn't create the transformation. It's the implementation that does. And I'm going to show you how to get help creating that implementation. So as we go through the next 60 minutes or so here, turn off your distractions. Make sure Facebook isn't popping up. Your email alerts aren't popping up. Your cell phone's not ringing. Get the distractions out of the way. Give me your undivided attention here for about the next 60 minutes or so. It's really going to make a big impact in the way that you conduct business. Make sure you grab a pen and some paper, take down some notes. I'm going to give you some nuances here as we go through today that you're going to want to remember. So you're going to want to make sure to have something to write those down with. And then just prepare to launch your show because I am going to show you the step-by-step process. The thing that you need to do is take action because so many times we go to these free trainings and we get all excited and we write down a bunch of notes and we get all fired up and then we get back to our to-do list and we don't do anything with it. The notes go in our top drawer or if your desk is like mine in the stack of papers right there and we never do anything with it. And when you don't take action and you don't do anything with the information that you learn, then unfortunately transformation doesn't happen. But I want to give you the help so you can take action and put this into effect. So in your mind, think, what is your biggest challenge? Post in the chat there your biggest challenge that's preventing you from launching your podcast. And there are so many things. Yeah, the imposter syndrome holding you back. Yeah, not understanding the tech. We're going to get into a lot of that here as we go through today. But what I want you to understand is it's not really about the tech at all. The tech isn't the whole the whole thing behind podcasting. The vehicle really doesn't matter. It's who you're becoming. What I want you to do is think of a neighbor. I want you to think of a neighbor that lives down the street a ways. You know, you kind of know who they are, but you're not really good friends. Like when you pass their house, you wave to them like, "Hey, how you doing?" And you keep on going. That kind of neighbor, that you have that person in mind. Now I want you to think of your next door neighbor. This is the person like if you saw their garage door open late at night, you would either go shut it for them or shoot them a text or something and say, "Hey, Mrs. Jones, your garage door's open." Or, "Hey, Rick, I see you left the mower out in the driveway with the garage door open." And they'll do something about it. That kind of friend, right? And then think of your best friend. This is the third person, like the best friend, that person that you would call at 3 in the morning. You got that best friend in mind? All right. Now, what I want you to do is think of something that you cherish. Maybe that's your pet or a child, something like that. and you have to go out of town and you need to leave that something you cherish with somebody, who is that going to be? Is it going to be the person down the street, the person next door, or your best friend? Well, of course, it's going to be your best friend, right? It's going to be your best friend. But why is that? Why are you going to leave the thing that you trust or the thing that you cherish with your best friend? It's because of trust. You've built that trust with your best friend. Many people think that podcasting is about all of the tech. It's not about the tech. It's actually about relationships. Because when you build relationships with people, you build that know, like, and trust. You build that rapport with them. And you build relationships through self-revelation. When you reveal things about yourself, that's how people get to know who you are. That's how you build that rapport. That's how you build that know, like, and trust. And so don't let the podcast hold you back because of the tech. Think of the podcast as a way to build the relationship. Because unfortunately, technology is sucking a lot of those relationships out of society today. If you think about getting your groceries, you can actually go online and order your groceries online, drive up, they deliver them to your car. You never have to go in and deal with anybody, right? We order gifts on Amazon and they're delivered to our front door. The guy runs away before you even have a chance to get to the door. Like, we don't have relationships with anybody. Even in telemarketing, like the telemarketer now is all an AI robot. You're not even talking to a real person. You can't even get mad at them and hang up on them because it's not really a person. Technology is sucking those relationships out of society today and out of business. But your podcast allows you to build that relationship and put those relationships back in business for you. I recently read this book here. It's called They Ask You Answer. It's by Marcus Sheridan. And in this book, Marcus says that people have done about 70% of their research before they ever even reach out to a company for more information. 70% of their buying research is done before they reach out to the company for more information. So I started digging in and I did a little more research, and I found that, especially in business to business, 57 to 70% are through the research. They're through almost 70% of their research is complete before they reach out to the company for more information. So if you're waiting until people reach out to you before you start building the relationship, you're way behind the eight ball, because they've been building a relationship with other companies as they do their research. Your podcast helps you reach them before they've completed their research. It reaches them and helps you build that relationship with them. And the podcast is the best way to do that. And through our training today, I'll show you exactly why podcasts are the best way to build that relationship. And I'll give you the exact steps to launch your podcast as we go through this. So a little about me. I've been in radio for 35 years. I started in this little Quonset hut right here. This was my very first radio gig. I got it completely by accident. I was growing up here in this house. My brother and I were being raised by my single mom. And I was home from college, and I actually, after we grew up here, I went here to the University of Nebraska to the College of Architecture to get my architecture degree. So while I was back home in this little house, my brother's boss called, and my brother worked for this radio station. And he needed somebody to fill in, and my brother wasn't home. And he said, "Hey, I'm looking for some part-time people. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm a broke college kid. I'll take that gig." So I started in radio while getting my architecture degree. And as I stayed in radio, I started to love radio. And as I stayed in architecture, I started to fall out of love with architecture. And so I just finished my architecture degree and stayed in radio. And never thought it would be a career. It was just something fun I was doing at the time. But the more I did it, the more I loved it. And the more I talked with people and built those relationships, it just became amazing. And I went on to have a fantastic career, interviewed people like George Strait. Back when I was in college, I met Ice-T and interviewed him. I interviewed Zach Brown. I interviewed Lady Gaga. And through all of this, what I was able to do, 35 years of radio experience, I was able to figure out how to build relationships with the audience so I could move that audience to action. And that's what most of the gurus miss. They'll teach you how to launch a podcast. You can go on YouTube and figure out how to launch your podcast. There are plenty of YouTube videos out there to show you that. But no other guru has 35 years of radio experience building successful marketing campaigns and learning the traits of effective marketing campaigns and building influence within that audience through relationships to activate that audience and get them to take action. And over the course of the years in radio, we've been able to move the audience to help us raise hundreds of thousands of bottles of water for the food bank for the Heartland so they could help homeless individuals. We were able to leverage our relationships with artists so they would come and do radio shows, do concerts for us so we could raise money for charity that way. This year's Old Dominion, right in the middle of this picture, country band. They came in to help us raise money. This also was for food bank for the Heartland. And if you look at that check, we raised over $1 million for the food bank just by activating our audience and leveraging the partnerships we created in the music industry to create this event and raise $1 million. Not only that, I used the influence that I had with the audience to help businesses like Centrist Federal Credit Union and Cox Communications and Wendy's and Twizzlers. And I used my influence to become an influencer for them. And I endorsed their products to the audience to get their audience to activate and do business with these companies. That's what the influence does with your podcast. And not only that, I've been invited to be on stage. 48 Days Eagles invited me to be the dean of podcasting in their private community. New Media Expo reached out and had me on their stage. I was on stage at Podcast Movement. Dave Jackson, the host of School of Podcasting, came to me and invited me to be part of a show with him. And we do the podcast review show together. I was invited to be on the Trailblazer Business Summit. It's been so many opportunities because people are now coming to me rather than me chasing all of them, because I now have relationships. I've built relationships. I understand what relationships can do through podcasting. You know, when radio started to become homogenized, I discovered podcasting and the ability to build these powerful relationships with my audience through podcasting by sharing my story and telling people exactly what I did and how I did it. And so I see all of these experts out there, all these gurus, you know, people like Brendan Burchard. I went out and I bought Brendan Burchard's uh, Experts Academy, and I bought Jeff Walker's product launch formula. And I'm all in on Russell Brunson and ClickFunnels and One Funnel Away and all of that. And I see all of these experts doing it, and I think, why can't I do it? Right. So I jump in. And you know, all the experts say, oh, just send an email and the cash starts flowing to you, right? And so I send the email and nothing happens, because what all the experts and gurus don't tell you is that you need an audience first before you can send the email. It doesn't do you any good to send the email when there's nobody on the other end to receive it. And that's what building the relationship with your podcast audience can do for you. Helps you build the relationship, helps you build the audience, helps you build the list. You know, sales drive business. You know that. But when it comes to sales, there are 4 steps to the sales process. The first step in the sales process is building rapport with your prospect. Once you build that know, like, and trust, that rapport, the second step is to qualify your prospect, which means you make sure they're right for you and they're making sure you're right for them. Your product is right for me. I'm right for you. We're good. We like each other. The third step in the sales process is to educate your prospect on your solution. Great. I know I can help you. Here's my solution. Here's what it does for you. And then the last step in the sales process is to close the sale or to begin the working relationship. Unfortunately, everybody rushes to the educate and close part of the sales process. Hey, let me tell you what I have to sell. Let me tell you about my course and why you should buy it. But they don't do any rebuilding rapport and they don't qualify their prospect. You can do both of those with your podcast because your podcast allows you to build the relationship and your podcast allows you to qualify your prospect and they self-qualify themselves. They hear you talk about what you do, who you help, what you help them do and why. And they say, yeah, I need me some of that. And they qualify themselves. You understand? Can you start to see how this podcast relationship building process can help grow your business? All four of these steps, they're not created equal. 40% of the sales process is building rapport. 30% is actually qualifying your audience. First, I need to decide if I like you. Second, I need to decide whether or not you're right for me. Once I've done that, then okay, show me what you have. Show me what your course does or what your coaching program does. And then where do I sign? But 40% is building rapport and 30% is qualifying your audience, which is 70% of the sales process. If you go back to what we just talked about, they ask you answer, 70% of the research is done before they ever reach out to a business about their product, which means they're building rapport and they're qualifying themselves. They're qualifying you. Then they reach out and they want to get educated on your solution. What is it that you have for me? 70% of the sales process can be done using your podcast if you use it in the right way and if you build that relationship with your audience. And then once you educate them on your solution, you just ask them if they'd like to get started. One of my favorite books is The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. Fantastic book. In this book, Chet says 3% of your market is buying today. 3% of your market actively looking for the solution today. All right. That means 97% of your audience not buying today. So if you're only speaking to the people who are buying today, you're only speaking to 3%. 97% aren't even thinking about it. But if you're building the relationship with your podcast, you're talking to all 100%. Here's how Chet breaks it down. He says 3% of your market is buying today. They're actually actively seeking a solution to their challenge. 7% could be convinced to buy today. They say, you know what? Now that you mention it, I do need one of those doohickeys. I wasn't thinking about it, but now that you mention it, yeah, give me one. So they could be talked into buying it. They just weren't thinking about it today. It wasn't a critical need today. The 30% below that, they're not buying now. They're going to need what you have to offer. They just don't need it today, right? It's like if you're selling automobiles, I'm going to need a car. I don't need a car today. I'm going to need a car probably a year from now. So you and I should talk a year from now and I'll buy a car. Well, you don't want to wait until a year from now when I'm looking for a car to say, oh, hey, remember me? What you want to do is build the relationship now so that when I need a car, you're the one I think of. So they don't need it now. They need it eventually. Nurture that relationship. The next 30%, they don't think they need what you have. No, I'm good. I don't need what you have. I'm all right. I'm good. And then you say, well, do you realize the vehicle that you drive typically has severe engine problems at 120,000 miles and you're at 130? You're on your last leg. Oh, I didn't realize that. Maybe I do need a new car now. So they don't think they need your solution based on the information they have. They need more education. That's what you can do on your podcast. And then the last 30%, they're never interested because they may be brand loyal to another brand or something like that. Maybe their spouse works for Toyota and you sell Fords, right? They get a great deal at Toyota. They're not going to buy your Ford. However, if their spouse changes jobs and no longer works at Toyota and now they go work for IBM, hey, maybe they're in the market for a Ford now. So if you have built that relationship with them, when they're no longer loyal to their brand, they think of you. You build the relationship. So now you're not simply selling to the 3% that are buying in your market today, you're selling to all 100%. Can you see how powerful that can be in your business? How you start to fill the pipeline long before you need it, rather than just trying to fight your way to the 3% that everybody's trying to sell to? Can you see how just being top of mind makes you so much more marketable in your niche? Because people want what you have. You've built that relationship with them. Your podcast allows you to attract your ideal client rather than going out and chasing them. If you're only marketing to the 3%, you're trying to chase the same 3% everybody else is chasing. But if you're building the relationship, you're attracting them to you. When they think of, I need a solution, they think of you because you already have the relationship. That's what a podcast can do for you. This is Ann Sullivan. Ann came to me to launch her podcast. She teaches harp, and she's phenomenal. She does it in the Pittsburgh area, plays amazingly well, amazing teacher. She would give in-person lessons, and then COVID hit, and guess what happens? You can't do lessons in person anymore. So she went online, and she needed a way to market her harp lessons. And she wanted to start a podcast, and she'd always thought about starting a podcast. Just she never really got around to it. Then all of a sudden COVID hit, and she knew she really needed to start marketing online, and she really wanted to launch it. She just couldn't get over that hump. She needed that accountability because she never took the leap. When she came to me and got enrolled in the podcast launch Accelerator, she ended up launching her podcast in 30 days. Now she has other harp teachers teaching for her as well. And she's got a nice little business going doing it. And not only is she doing it there in Pittsburgh, she's now doing it worldwide. That's the power of a podcast. This is Tavana Denise. Tavana was similar. She was in nursing, and nursing was just sucking the life out of her. So she got out of nursing and got into entrepreneurship. And as soon as she did, she had all of these other women asking her, "How did you do it? How did you get out? Help me escape too." And so she wanted to start a podcast so she could spread her message and give hope to all of those nurses who are doing the same thing and help them get out. And she would use her podcast to invite people to a networking session. And at her networking session, which was free, she would invite those ladies to become part of her paid mastermind and coaching program. She came to me, and in 30 days, we launched her podcast, and she was off and running. And she said she believes the reason her networking sessions were so successful was because she had the ability to market it through the podcast. It's building those relationships that are so critical. But you have to grow your audience too. When Greg came to me, we launched the Cool Grandpa podcast, and Greg was getting a few hundred listeners. And after going through my program, he was able to get 854 in a month. And then halfway through the next month, he was already at 718, on path to double his downloads yet again. And then I recently talked to Greg. He got featured in the New York Times and it was able to get a month's worth of downloads in a weekend just because he was following a system to attract his ideal clients. This is Rocky Lavana. He has the Profit Answer Man podcast. He was able to double his downloads too, just by coming through my programs, because he says while most people focus on the equipment and the tech, Eric focuses on the listener and how you can serve them, because it's not about the tech. It's about your relationship that you're building with your audience. It's the relationships you're building in your niche that will help you succeed. Doesn't matter what kind of microphone you have or how well you can work your way around the technology. You need to be able to build those relationships with your audience, get in front of your ideal clients, convert them into prospects, and bring them into your world. Just imagine what it would be like to be able to build an audience that full of your ideal clients and full of your prospects that can come to you because they want what you have to offer. That's what your podcast can do for you. Now, why podcasting? Well, Eric, I have a YouTube channel. Why can't I just use that or a blog? There are three main ways you can share your content online. You can do it through audio form, through a podcast. You can do it through video, like YouTube, or you can do it through the written word, like a blog. Now, there are benefits and drawbacks to each one. So if you go online, according to some statistics, this is from 2021, but this number hasn't changed for years. There are about 600 million blogs out right now available for you to actually subscribe to. If you go on YouTube, there are about 51, 53 million YouTube channels. These are YouTube channels you can subscribe to. You'll get push notifications on your phone occasionally. Um, about 53 million today YouTube channels. There are about 3.5 million to 4 million podcasts today, and only half of them, just under 2 million, are actively publishing new episodes. They've kind of faded away, half of them. So ask yourself, do you want to be one of 3.5 million or do you want to be one of 600 million? It's a heck of a lot easier to stand out in podcasting than it is on any of the other platforms because there just isn't that many comparative to all of the rest. The second reason I love podcasting is that it's portable. You can listen to your podcast while you're doing other things. I can listen while I'm running. I can listen while I'm working out and exercising, while I'm driving in the car, while I'm in the shower. A little difficult to read a blog while you're in the shower. A little difficult to watch a YouTube video while you're riding a bike. Probably not the safest thing you can do. So people can consume your content while they're doing other things. You're building a relationship. People listen to audio because they don't want to be alone. They want a companion. So when they're out running by themselves, they're listening to you. You're their companion. You become their friend. You build that relationship. That's why podcasting is so powerful. The numbers are also in your favor too. 39% of adults in America listen to podcasts on a weekly basis. 109 listened last month alone, and it's on a projected growth of 40% over the next 3 years. That's according to the Nielsen company. That's the company that does radio and television ratings. So the future in podcasting is incredibly bright. It's growing by leaps and bounds. People can take it with them. People can consume it while they're doing other things. And it connects you. It builds those relationships. Can you see how powerful that can be for your business? So much more powerful than video, so much more powerful than a written blog. Just imagine how your business could grow if you're building relationships with your audience so that when they're ready to take action and they're ready to solve their problem, they think of you. Just think how much more revenue you could generate in your business just by building those relationships and having a conversation every week with your ideal clients. So you're creating all of this content, but are you leveraging your content to its fullest potential? Is your content leading somewhere? Is it building that relationship with your audience in a way that you can turn your audience into clients? You can turn your guests into clients. You can interview your peers and use them as joint venture relationships, affiliates for your programs. There's so much more you could do with your content, and a podcast allows you to do that. So I promised that I was going to walk you through the 5 steps to launching your podcast. And the 5 steps are pretty simple. These are the 5 steps. Launching the podcast isn't the difficult part. Growing the audience becomes the challenge. And I'll show you how to do that as well. But here are the 5 steps to launching your podcast. The first step is to build the foundation. Now, don't overcomplicate this entire process. Okay. Don't get swallowed up by the tech because it's not about the tech. It's about the relationships you're building with your podcast. Okay. Gary Vaynerchuk records some of his podcasts in the back of an Uber in the middle of New York City. Nobody worries about the quality of your audio when your content is great. So the first step is to build that foundation. This is the piece most gurus miss. They'll teach you these other 4 steps, But building the foundation is so critical. This is where you identify your ideal target listener, and you get perfectly clear on why you want to create that podcast, why you want to leave your impact on the world, why you want to be a known authority in your niche, why you want to have that influence over your audience to get them to take action. The foundation is so critical, and most of the podcast gurus miss this critical step. The second step is to record your podcast. You just need three pieces of equipment. You need a USB microphone. You need a computer to plug that USB microphone into, and you need yourself a pair of earphones so you prevent feedback. So you record your podcast into your computer. You edit the podcast. Now, editing the podcast is super easy. You get a free audio software like Audacity, and you can edit your podcast right there. And editing audio is just like editing a Word document. All the same actions, cut, paste, copy, delete, all of the things you would do in a Word document, you do when you're editing audio. It's super easy. The fourth step is to upload it to your audio host. Now, your audio host is like a storage unit for all of your audio. You don't take your podcast and give it to Apple and give it to Spotify and give it to iHeartRadio and give it to all of the others. What you do is you take it and you upload it to your audio host, and then you give the audio host address to all of the players. So if you can upload a photo to Facebook, you can upload audio to an audio host. Super easy. And then you take your address to your audio host and you distribute it to all of the platforms. And that's as simple as checking a few boxes. Distributing your audio to everybody else is really pretty simple. So let's go into each one of these. In your foundation, the first step is to determine your why. Why do you want to create a podcast in the first place? Most people tell me they want to have authority in their niche. They want to have influence over their audience so they can move them to action. They want to help build their business, but more importantly, we want to have impact on the world and share their message. But you have to get perfectly clear on your why so you have a solid foundation upon which to build that podcast. Next, you need to decide which topic you're going to talk about. It's got to be a topic you love and that you can talk about for days and days on end. You need a target audience. Be perfectly clear on who you're trying to attract, who you help, what you help them do, and why. Then you need to develop a show name. Don't be too cool for the room, but make sure it stands out. You don't want a name that's generic like the John Smith Show because nobody knows what it's about. But you also don't want to have a name that's really super clever that nobody can understand what you're talking about, or what the show's all about. So make sure that it's a good name, it's a unique name, but it's not too clever. And then create your graphics. I usually use Canva. Super easy to create your graphics. You just need to make sure that your graphics conform to the Apple Podcast standards. So your graphics will show up in Apple Podcasts. And then you need to define your style. What sort of style will you have? What's that personality you're going to have on your show that will come out, that will attract people to you? So those are the steps of the foundation of your show. Once you have that solid foundation, which most podcast gurus don't teach you, once you have that solid foundation, you will be able to build a podcast that will attract your ideal clients to you, who want to work with you, who want to share your programs and content with everybody else. Now you're ready to record your show. So you need to set aside some production time. A lot of people say, Eric, how long will it take me to produce my podcast? The answer is it depends. Depends how good you are. Depends how fast you do it. Depends what kind of system you have set up to record your show. Once you get into it and you get the hang of it, it will probably take you maybe an hour to an hour and a half to record a 30-minute show. If you're doing a 15-minute show, you might be able to do that in an hour. It all depends on how long the show is, how much you're going to edit, what you're going to piece together, and that sort of thing. But you need to do it on a consistent basis, and that's the important part. So set aside time to produce it each and every week. Then you need to develop your process. I have a process kind of like a pre-flight checklist that a pilot will use so he can check off each step of the way and know exactly how to go through the process in order to launch. So every week I don't have to think about, wow, what was it I was supposed to do here? You just go through the process and you go through the checklist. You need to get your equipment. You need a USB microphone that I talked about. A USB plugs right into the USB port of your computer to make it super easy for you to record. You don't need to spend hundreds of dollars. This USB mic I'm using right here is a $75 microphone. It's super easy. You can find one online. Get like a Samson, SAMSON Q2U or something like that. Super easy. Don't spend a whole lot of money on your equipment. Then you need to determine how to record. Are you going to record in Zoom by doing some interviews? Are you going to record straight into Audacity and just edit it there? Are you going to take your Zoom interviews and put them into Audacity? So you need to record. You need to record the episode and determine how you're going to record that. I like to use Zoom. A lot of podcast snobs and all the other gurus will tell you you need to use StreamYard or Riverside or all this other heavy equipment, and you don't need any of that. You don't need a mixer. You don't need any of that. They say that the Zoom audio is not quite as good as Riverside or StreamYard, which is true. But again, people aren't listening for your audio quality. They're listening for your content. Nobody says, man, I can't miss an episode of that podcast because the audio quality is so good. Yeah, the content's okay, but man, his mic sounds amazing. Nobody says that. They say, man, the content is fantastic. Nobody goes away. Now it has to be passable, but it doesn't have to be pristine. So record on Zoom. Everybody knows how to use Zoom and it's super easy. So just do that. Then you need to record your interviews. That's where I like to use Zoom. Make sure your guest knows exactly who your audience is, what they're allowed to say, what they're not allowed to say. Prepare them for the interview. Ask great questions. Listen intently. Ask great follow-up questions. Create great conversations. And then create your open and your close. That's that static piece of your podcast, that introduction that you hear on every single episode. That's the open. Close is optional. You can do that if you want. So now you have your pieces all recorded. Now we just need to edit it together. And editing's pretty simple. Audacity is the name of the program that I suggest you get. It's free. You can just download that for both Mac and PC. Makes it super easy. If you can edit a Word document, you can edit in Audacity. They're all the same commands. Cut, paste, copy, delete, all of that. You highlight, you hit the delete key, it goes away. It's super easy to learn. And there's a million videos that can show you how to edit in Audacity. I can help you much faster than that, but I'll show you what that means. You need some music and sound effects. Get royalty-free music and put that underneath your intro to add a little showbiz to it if you'd like. Then you export the file as an MP3. Now, exporting it as an MP3 from Audacity, you just go under File, export it as an MP3. It's just like exporting a Word document as a PDF. Just as easy, super simple. You export it as a MP3 and you're all good to go. Make sure it's an MP3 because it will want to export it as a WAV file, and WAV files are 10 times as big. A 30 meg WAV file is a 3 meg MP3, and you want small file size so you don't eat up a lot of storage space on your computer. You don't eat up a lot of storage space in your audio host, and you don't eat up a lot of storage space on your listener's phone either. Studies show that people unsubscribe from podcasts because the podcast takes up too much space on their phone. So be cognizant of the file size. Now you're ready to upload. So you need a hosting account. You can host anywhere you want. I recommend Libsyn, Libsyn. Libsyn is a hosting service. There's Blueberry and there's a variety of others. I would be careful of using a free account because when people give their stuff away for free, they find it challenging to make money and they find it challenging to stay in business, and you want your audio host to be around for a while. I love Libsyn. It's very inexpensive. They have great customer service and support, and they can help you a ton. If you're getting a Libsyn account, Libsyn, use the promo code PTC, short for Podcast Talent Coach, and you can get your first month for free at libsyn.com. So you get yourself a hosting service. Your storage, the amount of storage that you want will determine how much you pay for your hosting account. That's why I highly encourage you to export as an MP3. You use less storage. If you export as a mono rather than a stereo MP3, you use even less storage. So the amount of storage that you need will determine how much you pay for an audio host. It's anywhere between $5 and $40 a month, depending on how often you are publishing your show. Once you've done that, share it on Facebook, let everybody know that it's available, and make sure that you share it on your website as well to make it easy for people to access your content, find your show, and listen to it. And then you can mail it out to your email list and have them come and consume it. Now that the show is out there to the world, we need to distribute it. So we need to get it out to all of the platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify and those sorts of things. In Libsyn or wherever you're hosting your audio, you will find your RSS feed. That's like the address to your storage unit. You'll take the RSS feed and you'll give it to all of the other platforms. You'll have to manually give it to Apple, but in Libsyn, you can just check a bunch of boxes and it will send your RSS feed to all of these other platforms. Once you start getting on the big ones, all of the little ones will find you and ingest your RSS feed into their platforms as well. So Apple is a little finicky. You have to do that one in a manual sort of way because Apple approves all podcasts on their network. But you only have to do this step one time and one time only, because once all of the platforms have your RSS feed, every time you publish a new episode, it automatically gets ingested into that platform. You don't have to do anything. It automatically does it. So you record, you upload to your audio host, and you're done. So you just need to distribute it to everybody one time and you're good. Now what you need to do is get out and promote your show. You need to get out and tell everybody it exists, because so many people think if I build it, they will come. And that's just simply not the case. You got to go tell them that it exists and you have to do a little legwork and you promote it. So those are the 5 steps to launching your podcast. Build your foundation, record your show, edit your show, upload your show, distribute it. That's it. You're launched. Now, every time you're ready to do a new episode, you just do the three middle steps. You don't have to do the foundation again, and you don't have to distribute again because that's already done. Now, every week you just record, edit, upload, and you're done. We get out and we promote. Unfortunately, there's this thing called pod fading. I thought pod fading was a big wives' tale, and it was a big myth. Pod fading says that a lot of podcasts, many podcasts, fade away about the 7-episode mark. And I thought it was a joke. I thought, yeah, it can't possibly be. I was working with a client one time, and we were trying to find podcasts to get her interviewed on. And so we went into her niche, and her niche was caregiving for her elderly parents. She helped middle-aged women care for their elderly parents. So her caregiver podcast, we were looking for other podcasts centered on caregiving. And the more we looked, the more I discovered that all of these podcasts would be 7, 8, 9 episodes, and they would just stop publishing. Many like back in 2019 or 2018, and they just didn't publish anymore. They weren't around, and I couldn't figure out why. So I started digging into it, and I found out that there are 3 reasons that podcasts don't stick around. And many podcast gurus miss this point. They'll show you how to launch, but they won't show you how to stick around. And a lot of that comes into 3 primary reasons. But before I jump into the 3 primary reasons, let's talk about you launching first. A lot of times we go to these events, these teachings, and we get a whole lot of great information, but then we don't do anything with it because we lack accountability. We love to go learn and we love to gather the information, but we get back to our normal everyday lives and we think, yeah, someday I'll get to it, or tomorrow I'll do that. Unfortunately, someday and tomorrow never come because nobody is there holding you accountable. And I want to help you and show you the power of accountability and give you that step-by-step process to go through and know exactly where to start and know exactly what to do. So just think in your mind, what's holding you back from launching? Maybe it's you haven't been able to find the time, you haven't worked it into your schedule. Maybe you're not sure where to start or what equipment to get. Most just never take action. But I want to give you the opportunity to go through this step by step to eliminate all the trial and error and all the guesswork and get my help and attention to walk you through this, take your hand and walk you every step of the way. It's called my podcast launch accelerator. This is a program that's designed so I can take your hand and walk you through the step-by-step process to launch your podcast in 30 days. By the end of this program, if you take action and do what I show you to do, you'll have your podcast launched in 30 days. There is no guessing. There is no hunting and pecking. There's no watching endless YouTube videos. By the end of this program, you'll have your podcast published to the world. It will be up and live. You will lay the foundation to be a known influencer in your niche. You'll start sharing your story and building those relationships. You'll begin building those powerful, profitable relationships with your audience so they start coming to you rather than you chasing them. And more importantly, you'll free up your time. Not only free up your time so you can do more work in your business and work with your clients, but you'll free up your time to go live your life and do what you want to do rather than trying to figure out how to do this. You'll put the process in place to consistently create that content every week. So in the Podcast Launch Accelerator, it's a live program where I meet with you over the course of 4 weeks and show you exactly which steps to take to get your podcast launched in 30 days. We go through those 5 steps that I just showed you. All of those steps we go through step by step, and I show you each and every step of the way what to do, and you can ask your questions. That's what the 4 live group training sessions are all about. We meet once a week for 4 weeks, and you have your podcast launched. I record all of the sessions. You also get lifetime access to the recordings, both audio and video, so you can go back and revisit any of the sessions anytime you'd like. That's a $1,497 value. So you get the 4 live group coaching sessions, and then you get lifetime access to those recordings to revisit anytime you'd like. Now, like I told you, I've been in radio for 35 years. I've been helping podcasters for a dozen years, and I have created over the decades an amazing collection of tools and resources, templates, worksheets, just color by number. And you get access to my full online toolkit. There are over 3 dozen templates and worksheets in here to help you not only craft your podcast, but create your content, create better interviews, the whole thing. It's all in here. You get full access to all of my knowledge and all of my resources that I've developed over the last 3 decades. And you get that. That's a $497 value in addition to the live calls. You get to be member of the private podcast launch accelerator group. Now, this is a group, Facebook group, private. The only way in is to be in this program. This is an opportunity for you to ask your questions and get help between our calls. So if on our call, we're explaining the ideal target listener and you're developing your ideal target listener this week before our next call, but you get stuck, you can jump into the Facebook group and ask your question. Either I or somebody else in the program will help answer your question to make sure you get unstuck and stay on track to launch your podcast in 30 days. That's a $497 value as well. Now, just to make sure that you're on the right track, I'm going to give you a one-on-one call with me. It's a $250 value where you and I sit down, we talk about your podcast. We talk about why you're launching a podcast and how to best use that podcast in your business to grow your relationships, to grow your authority and your influence, and to help you leave your mark on the world. I want to make sure you have a well-defined strategy, and that's what this one-on-one call is designed to do for you. Then you have lifetime access to all future calls, updates, and versions. I teach this class periodically throughout the year, usually about 3 times a year. Sometimes I update it. When I do, whenever I teach it again, you can come back through it again. Because sometimes we miss a few things the first time through it and we launch, but we need to refine it. You can come back through again a second time. Maybe you want to launch an additional podcast, come back through again. Anytime I launch it, any future update, anytime we do it again, you're able to come back through a second time, a third time, a fifth time, whenever you want. That's a $1,497 value. So the total value of the entire podcast launch accelerator is $5,735. Enrollment for it is not $5,735. Enrollment in podcast launch accelerator is $997. But I do have some bonuses for you to make this super easy. My first bonus, if you want to do interviews on your podcast, you need to do the interviews the right way. Just like I was interviewing George Strait and Lady Gaga, I've created a podcast interview course that shows you exactly what I do when I interview all of those stars and how you can create great interviews just like that. It's called Creating Powerful and Unique Podcast Interviews. It's a course I sell on my website for $197. I'm going to make sure you know exactly how to do interviews, so I'm giving you that course as bonus number one. Once you launch your podcast, we talked about, well, once you launch it, now we have to grow it. That's the tough part, right? Launching it isn't the tough part. Figuring out how to bring the audience in is the challenge. So bonus number two, I'm going to give you a complimentary ticket to my Audience Explosion Blueprint 3-day event. It's a 3-day workshop that I hold that will show you how to build your audience, not just your podcast audience, but your email list, your YouTube channel, your social media following, all of the strategies I teach you in the Audience Explosion Blueprint 3-day event is useful around any platform, and it will help you grow that audience. Now, I have $197 value on this right now. This course, this program is selling for $297 on my website. It will go up to $497 the closer we get to the event. So it's a great bonus for you, and it will help you get my attention again, get my help, get my feedback one-on-one in a group through the entire weekend to grow your audience. All right. So that's bonus number two. And then I have one more bonus for you. Just to make sure that you have your entire strategy right, I'm going to give you an additional bonus one-on-one call with me. You can schedule that when you like. We can do that during the program or after the program, where you and I will sit down and make sure that you are on the right path, to make sure that this podcast is woven into your marketing strategy for your business to help you attract those ideal clients. So the total value of Podcast Launch Accelerator is $6,379. Enrollment is $997. But today, it's not even going to cost you $997 because I value your time and attention today. So we're going to scratch that, and I'm going to give you a deal today. You can enroll in Podcast Launch Accelerator today for just $497. $497 gets you the entire program. It will get you the 4 live calls with me. It will get you the opportunity to revisit those calls anytime you'd like and come back and do it again and again and again. You get recordings of those calls to visit them anytime you'd like. You get access to my entire worksheet and toolkit library. You get the one-on-one call with me. You get the bonuses with the interviews course. You get the Audience Explosion Blueprint program, and you get that bonus one-on-one call with me, all for $497. I put the link in the chat right there. When you visit that page, you'll come to this page right here. So we go to podcasttalentcoach.com/PLA. It's Podcast Launch Accelerator, where you can launch your podcast in 30 days. It will give you the entire rundown of everything we just discussed right here. And if you go down here at the bottom, you can click the Get Access Now and click on that. It will take you to the enrollment page. Our next live classes begin June 24th. I would love to have you as part of the program. Get in and join us now and get signed up at podcasttalentcoach.com/PLA for Podcast Launch Accelerator. Of course, I'm going to give you a guarantee, right? I don't know if this is for me. I'll fix that for you. I'm going to give you a guarantee. If you get into Podcast Launch Accelerator and you start swimming upstream and you're getting a little stuck, I guarantee that you will launch. If you don't launch during the program, I will continue to work with you until you get launched because I want to see you share your message with the world and leave your impact. You have a message inside of you. You have that authority and that expertise. I want to see you share that. So if you get into Podcast Launch Accelerator and you struggle to get launched, I will work with you until you do get launched. All right. You can get enrolled at podcasttalentcoach.com/PLA. Again, the classes begin Monday, the 24th. I'll give you a quick overview of what that looks like. So in week 1, we talk about your why. We allocate your production time. We define your podcast style and personality. We talk about your target and we define your target listener. We build that foundation, just like we talked about in the 5 steps. We talk about the foundation and we build that. We have to get that solid in order for you to succeed. And that's exactly what we do in week 1. So many podcast gurus miss this step. I want to make sure that you're solid right here before we move on. In week 2, we talk about the name of your show. We create your graphics. We build your hosting account, get your equipment. We define your process and how you're going to record. And then this week, we record the show. That's all we want to do. Just get out and have a conversation with somebody. If you're going to do an interview style show or you record your solo show, whichever you prefer, we record a show. I show you how to do all of that in week 2. In week 3, it's all about producing the show. We have a show recorded. Now we're going to walk through editing the show and exporting it. We want to finalize it and export it as that MP3, get it ready to launch. We answer all of your questions, get you all caught up here in week 3, make sure everything is rocking just like you need it to. So in week 4, we put the final edits on it. We add the open and close. We post the show to our audio host and to our website, and we get it out to the world. You are launched in 4 calls if all you just do is do the work. And then you have to grow the show. We promote the show. We talked about that. That's my Audience Explosion Blueprint live event. So the live event is where we learn how to promote the show and build the audience. We learn how to profit from the show. We infuse the show into our marketing plan, and we start building relationships with our audience. That's what Audience Explosion Blueprint is all about. And just by being in Podcast Launch Accelerator, you have a free ticket to come to Audience Explosion Blueprint Live. Super easy. $497. Classes begin Monday, June 24th. So you get your podcast launched. What prevents you from fading away? What if I do all this work and then I just give up? I don't want you to give up. And most podcast gurus stop where I just stopped, and they send you out into the world and say, good luck. I don't want to see that happen to you. I want to make sure that you're publishing episode 50 and then 100 and then 200. Right now, I'm up to episode 495. I want you to get there too. There are 3 main reasons that podcasts fade away. And I want to show you what these reasons are and show you how to avoid these pitfalls. And then we'll answer any questions that you have. The first reason most podcasts fade away is that they realize podcasting is more work than they thought it was going to be because they're hunting and guessing and pecking and searching all over the internet trying to find solutions. They don't have a step-by-step process to walk through producing their show efficiently each and every week. They're just doing it on a whim. I'm going to show you how to do it with a process. And it comes down to building your foundation. It's the 3 P's of all successful podcasts: your purpose, your program, and your platform. Your purpose is your why. We talked about that in the foundation step. Your program is your content. That's what you're talking about. And then your platform is the structure of your show. Are you going to do a solo show, a co-hosted show, an interview style show, maybe a mix of both? That's the best thing about podcasting. It's your show. Do whatever you want. You can do some of this and some of that, but you have to create a process and a plan to produce it on a regular basis so you don't fade away. And in Podcast Launch Accelerator, I show you how to do exactly that. So you get your podcast launched and you publish consistently so your audience can build that relationship with you. The second reason podcasts fade away is that the audience doesn't grow as fast as they thought it would because they don't have a promotion strategy. I told you a lot of podcast gurus will show you how to launch and they'll stop there. They don't take you into Audience Explosion Blueprint and show you how to grow your audience. This is a bonus P for you. I showed you the 3 Ps. This is P number 4. It's a little bonus. It's a promotion strategy. You have to promote the show. And that's what we do in Audience Explosion Blueprint. And that's why I'm giving that to you as a bonus, because I don't want to see you fade away. When you enroll in Podcast Launch Accelerator, we get you launched. And then I'm giving you the Audience Explosion Blueprint as a bonus to make sure you don't fade away. And then the last reason podcasts fade away and podcasters give up is the podcast doesn't generate revenue as fast as they thought it would because they have no system to incorporate the podcast into their marketing plan. To build the authority and the relationship, you need to have a system in place. So you grow the audience. We launch the podcast. We grow the audience. We bring them in. We start building relationships with that audience. As we build the relationship with the audience, we give them a free lead magnet and get them on our email list so we can nurture that list and continue to build the relationship. Then we make an offer to that audience. But it's all in a system. And part of that system is the podcast profit framework. We'll go over a little bit of that in Audience Explosion Blueprint during that weekend. I don't want to get too far ahead of you. We just need to get you launched now. But so many gurus don't show you how to incorporate the podcast into the system. Because when you build relationships with your podcast, it's so powerful. And it's not just relationships with your audience. You can build relationships with the audience by demonstrating your authority and demonstrating your coaching. And you can demo your products on your show. You can answer questions from the audience. It's a great way to build rapport with the audience, but you can also build rapport by interviewing your clients and further the rapport with your clients by featuring them on your show. You can build rapport with prospects and turn the guests that you interview into clients. One of my favorite ways to monetize a podcast is turn your guest into a client. You can interview prospects. You can interview partners who are promoting what you have, affiliate partners, joint venture partners. You can interview peers in the industry. You can interview mentors who you wish you could take to lunch or wish you could have a cup of coffee with, and they'll give you an hour of their time to be interviewed on your podcast. I mean, how great is that? You have a platform. People are seeking you out. Relationships are so powerful, and it gives you a great way to do it when you have yourself a podcast. I want to see you get enrolled today in Podcast Launch Accelerator. You can enroll at podcasttalentcoach.com/PLA, $497. Not only get you the full program, get you the interviews course as a bonus, get you Audience Explosion Blueprint as a bonus, get you another one-on-one call with me as a bonus as well. All of these live calls begin June 24th. So get enrolled so we can get you onboarded. If you go to podcasttalentcoach.com/PLA, that's where you can enroll. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of that page, you will find that gift that I promised you, that 75 ways to create engagement with your podcast. If you go to the bottom of the page, you'll see exactly where to find that. So if you go here to podcasttalentcoach.com/PLA and scroll all the way to the bottom, right here is your free gift, 75 ways to drive engagement. Just click right there and you can download it as well. But while you're here, click that big blue button and get enrolled in the Podcast Launch Accelerator. If you have any questions, post those up in the chat. I'd love to answer your questions. A lot of times people say, how often should I publish my podcast? I recommend weekly, because people are creatures of habit. You want to get them in the habit of listening to your show each and every week so you can build those relationships. Weekly is good. People often want to know, how long should my podcast be? No such thing as too long, only too boring. All right. I've heard podcasts that are an hour long that I wish were longer. I've heard podcasts that were 7 minutes long and I wish were shorter. As long as you have forward momentum and you're keeping the attention of your audience, your podcast is long enough. I often get asked, how long will it take me to produce my podcast every week? We talked about that a little bit. Sometimes if you're doing a 30-minute show, it might take you up to 90 minutes to do the full thing. That means outline the show, record the show, especially if you're doing an interview, edit the show, export the show, publish the show to your audio host, and market it. Send an email out to your list. So soup to nuts, maybe 90 minutes for a 30-minute show. If you're doing a 15-minute show, might take you about an hour. All right. And you just schedule that each and every week so you get it out on a consistent basis. The length isn't nearly as important as the consistency in doing it every week. And I can show you exactly how to do that. Head over to podcasttalentcoach.com/PLA. Get enrolled in Podcast Launch Accelerator. Our classes begin June 24th. I want to see you there because I want you to get launched here in the next 30 days. All right. Thanks for being here. Get your free gift at the bottom of that page as well. If you have any questions, hit me up on email. You can always email me at coach@podcasttalentcoach.com. Can't wait to see you inside the program. And thanks a ton for being here today. We'll talk to you soon.